On the day of the accident, my wife was celebrating the birthday of her first love. I died alone on the street, holding our sick child, waiting for help to arrive. When I regained consciousness, I found myself back in my high school days. A sweet, innocent girl in the back seat blushed and shyly asked if I wanted to be her boyfriend. No, I answered sharply. Don't ever mention such disgusting things to me again. The students at Second High School couldn't stop gossiping about it. Alex, Alicia's admirer, had fallen for someone new during morning reading. He didn't bring her milk, nor did he do her chores as he usually did. Even when Alicia was feeling sick, he didn't skip class to buy her warm milk or make rose sugar water like he always did. He's been chasing her for almost a year, and now he's just giving up? Maybe he's just throwing a fit, waiting for Alicia to make up with him. I heard the pretty girl from Third High is after him now. Alicia slammed her English book down on the desk, her face turning red with anger. It's time for morning reading. If you want to gossip, take it outside. As soon as she finished, I walked right past the door. The classroom fell silent, and dozens of eyes were on me. Ignoring their stares, I walked to my seat, pulled out the chair, and sat. I opened my backpack and found 2 glass bottles of milk. It seemed the maid at home had gotten into the habit of heating up 2 glasses and simply forgot that I only needed one. Alicia's desk mate, Lisa, poked me and whispered, "Alex is trying to get back with you. I told you he wouldn't last long." Alicia's eyes flickered, but I handed the milk to my desk mate, Martin. "Here, for you." Martin looked at me, clearly surprised. "For me?" I nodded, and then silently opened my Chinese textbook. Starting to read, Martin leaned in, curious. "Gee, why are you suddenly studying?" Without looking up, I replied, "I want to make it into Class A. Next semester, I got into Second High with the second highest score in the city. But to be in the same class as Alicia, I intentionally left a lot of questions unanswered in the first monthly exam and moved from Class A to Class F. But now, I have no reason to stay in this class anymore." I thought about how the girl sitting behind me had once been my wife, but she had betrayed me, giving our child sleeping pills so she could chase after her first love, ultimately leading to the car crash on a snowy night on our way to the hospital. I can't forgive her. It's time to end this miserable relationship. At lunch, Martin and I went to the cafeteria. After the chef served me the ribs I ordered, he smiled and asked, "What are you getting for Alicia today? We've got her favorite squirrel fish." I paused, remembering how, in my previous life, I had relentlessly pursued Alicia, filling her desk with love letters, confessing to her loudly during the flag-raising ceremony, despite the principal's warning. Everyone knew how much I liked her. The chef even knew what she liked to eat. It was almost like I was blindly running into a wall without thinking. Now, reflecting on it, it all felt so foolish I shook my head. "I'm not getting her food anymore," I said, then added, "I won't get her anything in the future either." The chef, who had been about to serve the squirrel fish, froze. I grabbed Martin's arm and walked away. To my surprise, I ran into Alicia at the end of the line. Our eyes met, and she looked shocked. I quickly turned away and left without looking back. Martin whispered, "Alex, what's wrong with you? Why have you suddenly stopped paying attention to Alicia?" I sat down at the table, mixing the rib soup with rice. "Nothing," I replied. "I just think it was all a waste of time." Once I stopped focusing all my energy on Alicia, I realized how much free time I had. I played basketball with my friends, arm wrestled, and even took out old test papers and practice books I'd forgotten about. Gradually finishing them high school, without constantly worrying about Alicia, felt so much freer and more fulfilling. Days passed like this, until the school's dance competition arrived. The homeroom teacher told us to go to the playground and cheer for our classmates. I remembered that in my previous life, I had bought all the flowers from the shops near the school to support Alicia's dance team. I even arranged the petals on the ground to spell out "Dancers with no boundaries, chase your dreams." Even though the thorns cut into my palms, I thought it was worth it. In the end, Alicia's team won with a high score. Amidst the applause and praise, her eyes were focused on her teammates and the glory, but not on me. This time, I used the excuse of feeling sick to ask the teacher for leave, staying in the classroom to study English alone. How foolish those actions seemed now. I promised myself I would never do anything like that again in this life. Martin returned halfway through and said, Alicia didn't perform well today during the dance. She kept glancing at the audience, almost like she was looking for someone. After a moment, he looked at me and asked, Do you think she was looking for you? No, I replied calmly, finishing a line of English words. At that moment, Alicia's face practically screamed disdain for Alex. Me not showing up would only make her happy. Martin continued talking about the competition, but I wasn't in the mood to listen. I used the excuse of going to get some hot water to leave, but as soon as I stepped out of the classroom, I saw several people rushing toward me. Just as I was about to step aside, Lisa, helping Alicia, shouted, Alex, don't you have that pain relief spray? Hurry, Alicia's hurt. I had prepared a small first aid kit because Alicia liked dancing. It contained a variety of imported medications that were very effective for injuries. But why was she injured this time? She had won competitions in my previous life. Alex, why are you just standing there? Lisa said, sounding panicked. I snapped out of my thoughts, glanced at Alicia's swollen ankle, and replied indifferently. It's expired, I threw it out. Without another word, I walked to the water room, not sparing her a second glance. What was I thinking? Her injury had nothing to do with me. The pain I went through in my past life was far greater than this. Why should I feel sorry for her? Behind me, I heard Lisa gasp, and I could feel a piercing gaze burning into my back, as if trying to tear through me. Due to her foot injury, Alicia had taken a leave of absence from school and hadn't been there for the past 2 days. When my mother found out, she had the maid prepare some bone broth and insisted I personally deliver it to Alicia to help her heal. Our families were close, and Alicia had grown up under my mother's care. My mother wouldn't feel at ease unless I visited her personally and showed my concern. Despite my constant protests, I couldn't resist her relentless demands. She even ordered the driver to make sure I delivered it straight to Alicia's door so I couldn't avoid it halfway. Reluctantly, I found myself taking the chicken soup to Alicia's house. It was late afternoon, and the wind was rustling the leaves of the sycamore trees. I wrapped my thin jacket tighter around myself as I got out of the car and saw the familiar white 3-story house. The last rays of the setting sun bathed it in an irritating orange hue. It all felt too familiar. As a child, I often visited here, and for nearly 2 years. I had even lived here. Every inch of the place was steeped in memories, her sadness after a breakup, and me comforting her, even though I was heartbroken myself. Her promise to always treat me well, and me naively believing her. My heart twisted painfully, the emotions overwhelming. After a moment, I regained my composure, opened the thermos, and the rich aroma of the bone broth filled the air. I set it down and gave it to a stray dog that came sniffing around such good food. It's not something she deserves. Once the dog finished the broth, I prepared to leave. Just as I turned, someone called my name. The voice was childish yet strangely familiar, but I didn't even bother to look back. Alicia quickly hobbled towards me, using crutches, nearly losing her balance in front of me. Sweat beaded on her pale forehead, and with a hint of grievance she said, Alex, what is wrong with you? I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat making it hard to speak. The girl in front of me, pure and beautiful, had once been my everything. I forced a cold, indifferent smile. I don't understand what you're talking about. I kept walking, but she quickly stepped in front of me, breathless, her lips pale, clearly in pain from every step. Why are you ignoring me? She asked, her eyes filled with confusion, as if trying to read something from my face, but she couldn't grasp it. She pointed to the food container on the ground. That bone broth was for me. Why did you give it to a dog? You used to insist on coming to my house, even when I told you not to today. You didn't even come up. I've been injured for days, and you haven't shown any concern. What exactly? Isn't this better? I interrupted her coldly. You find me annoying anyway. Alicia stood stunned for a moment, then nodded slowly. Yes, I don't like you clinging to me. I'm happier when you stay away. She gave me a mocking smile. Alex, you'd better not be playing some trick to get my attention. You know I hate that. A trick? It wasn't surprising she thought that way. In my previous life, I had done plenty of childish, ridiculous things to get her to notice me. Although I eventually made her my wife, I never truly won her heart, and I ended up dying alone on the street. So in this life, I had no intention of wasting any more time or feelings on her. You overestimate yourself. I don't have time for games, I said, pulling my lips into a cold, emotionless smile. The bone broth was something my mother insisted I bring. You know how she is. Just pretend you drank it and stop making trouble for me. Alicia's eyes were wide with disbelief. You think of me as a dog? I shrugged. If that's what you think, then I can't help it. Without giving her a chance to respond, I turned and walked away. Seeing her in class every day was bad enough. Now I just wanted to vanish. I had only taken a few steps when the thermos flew through the air and crashed to the ground with a loud bang. Alicia's furious voice followed, I don't need your stupid soup. Since that incident with the soup, Alicia and I hadn't spoken a word to each other. I stopped involving myself in anything related to her, no longer clinging to her in hopes of earning her affection. Instead, I focused all my energy on my studies, aiming to return to Class A as soon as possible. Once I was back in Class A, I wouldn't have to see her every day. In 2 years, when the college entrance exams came around, I wouldn't have to stay in the same city as her, watching her constantly break up and make up with her first love. Experiencing the turmoil of her emotions, I would escape as far away as possible, hoping to never cross paths with her again in this lifetime. However, the high school curriculum was much harder for me now, so I asked my mom to find a tutor for me. Among the many candidates, I chose Sophia, who was in the same grade in school, but in Class A. She was the top student who had beaten me in the high school entrance exam and was known as a super scholar. Our first conversation was brief. I said, I want to improve my grades as quickly as possible and get back into Class A. She simply replied, leave it to me. I started spending more time with Sophia. Whenever I encountered difficult problems, I'd save them up and go to Class A to ask her during breaks. We even studied together at a nearby fast food restaurant after school. Gradually, rumors began to spread at Second High. People started saying that I, the legendary simp, had switched targets and was now harassing the beautiful scholar under the pretense of studying. This caused Sophia's fanboys to grow dissatisfied, and one day, after school, they cornered me behind the teaching building. Alex, stay away from Sophia, a bottom feeder from Class F like you has no right to be around her, the boy leading the group said. He had a buzz cut, a strong build and well-defined muscles. He was apparently a shot-put athlete from Class C. The 3 boys behind him weren't as tall, but they still looked menacing. They quickly formed a circle, trapping me in the middle. Calmly, I said, Sophia is my tutor, I pay her, and she's providing a service. I'm not taking advantage of her. The buzz-cut boy sneered. Tutor? That's just an excuse for you to get close to Sophia, isn't it? Alex, you're shameless. You used every trick to chase Alicia, and now that you can't have her, you're bothering Sophia. As a guy, I'm embarrassed for you. Yeah, you're disgusting. She'll never like someone like you, who's addicted to chasing girls and not focused on studying. Sophia is a good student. If her grades drop because of you, and it affects her future college prospects, can you take responsibility? I stood there, slightly speechless. Yes, I admit I used to be a lovesick fool, but I've changed. Now, I'm focused on my studies. How could Sophia tutoring me cause such a reaction from them? After all, I'm paying for the service. Enough talking, the buzz-cut boy snapped, losing his patience. He took a step forward and pressed his chest against mine. If we don't teach you a lesson, you won't realize your mistake. With that, the other boys rolled up their sleeves, clearly ready to act. What do you think you're doing? At that moment, Sophia appeared, grabbing my wrist and pulling me to her side. She was small, with a cute bun on her head, but stood tall and proud, radiating authority. The boys immediately backed down when they saw her, their fierce expressions melting into something more innocent. Their change of demeanor was faster than a Sichuan opera face change. Sophia, don't be fooled by Alex. He's just a playboy. He couldn't get Alicia, so now he's after you. We're only looking out for you. If someone from Class F like him affects your studies, what will you do? He just wants to date you, unlike us, who actually care about you. They called me a playboy while trying to flatter her. Sophia cut them off firmly, her voice louder than I had expected. "Alex is my employer," she said, shocking even me. She stood in front of me, declaring boldly, "I rely on him for my livelihood. Anyone who tries to interfere with that will have to answer to me." It was a middle schooler acting tough, but it worked. With that, she quickly pulled me away, under the astonished stares of the boys. Once we were outside the school, she inspected me, turning my arm this way and that. "Did you get hurt?" she asked, her voice full of concern. I shook my head and she sighed with relief. "Good. I'll handle those guys. They won't bother you again. You won't stop letting me tutor you because of this, will you?" She added, "I dare say no one can teach you better than I can." Seeing my silence, she became anxious. "I'll take care of your classroom duties. I'll also fetch hot water for you until you graduate. From now on, you're under my protection." She looked up at me, her eyes sparkling like grapes, and a sweet lychee scent seemed to emanate from her. "Okay," I said, smiling despite myself. A small girl like her, how did she get the courage to stand up to a nearly 6-foot-tall guy like me and protect me? Still, I nodded. Sophia had a way of explaining things, and changing tutors would just be inconvenient. She relaxed and said, "From now on, I'll come to your class. Let them talk about me." The next day, during the long break as we had agreed, Sophia came to my class, the students in Class A, usually proud and aloof because of their excellent grades, rarely interacted with anyone from Class F. Her arrival immediately caused a stir. Under the watchful eyes of dozens of students, Sophia calmly walked over to me. She took the pen from my hand without hesitation, glanced at the math problem I was struggling with, and quickly wrote out the solution on a scrap of paper. I gave her a thumbs up in admiration. A top student is truly a top student. Behind me, Lisa nudged Alicia and whispered, "That's Sophia, the one who's been close to Alex lately." Alicia snorted coldly and turned her head to continue touching up her makeup. But after a few seconds, she sat up straight and kicked the leg of my chair hard. Pouting in frustration, she said, "Alex, you're disturbing my rest." I frowned at her. I had been quietly working on the problem, making no noise at all. Besides, the entire class was noisy with chatter and laughter. There were plenty of louder sounds than mine. So I ignored her and continued discussing the problem with Sophia. Suddenly, a ballpoint pen flew from behind me, hitting my notebook with a loud thud, leaving a long black line across it. Damn it, I had just solved that problem. Alicia leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, looking defiant. "We in Class F don't welcome people from Class A. Be sensible and leave. A bottom feeder like you doesn't belong around a top student." I took a deep breath, my voice calm as I retorted, "Alicia, if you're sick, take some medicine. Don't act crazy here." Alicia's face darkened, her eyes glaring at me. Lisa and Martin beside her gasped in shock. I glared right back at her, then turned to pack up my books. "Sophia, let's go to the rooftop. Don't mind the lunatic." I grabbed Sophia's hand and walked out. The classroom fell into stunned silence and every eye was on us. Behind me, Lisa whispered, "Wow, is he really with Sophia?" Alicia looked conflicted but didn't speak. Because of Alicia's outburst, the long break was almost over. Sophia and I had planned to meet at the milk tea shop after school to study. However, when evening came and I was packing up to leave, Alicia appeared at the classroom door. Given her behavior earlier, I wasn't in the mood to engage with her, so I prepared to ignore her. But she blocked my way. "I heard you want to get into Class A," she said, her voice unusually soft and sweet. I replied impatiently, "Yes, so what?" "I'll help you find a tutor," she said, her tone almost too kind. "The best one." "No need, I have Sophia." Alicia's face soured, her lips curling into a pout. "What does she know?" "More than you do," I said, brushing past her without a second glance. Under Sophia's tutoring, my grades improved rapidly. Several small tests showed good results, but I was still far from returning to Class A. One day, while working on a physics test, Martin came running with a bag of snacks. "I heard we're getting a transfer student," he said. My pen paused. By my calculations, he should be arriving soon. The class bell rang, and just like in my past life, Alicia helped the new student into the classroom. He had gotten lost on his way to report to Class F and was injured by a basketball. I looked at Itu Makoto's face. He wasn't particularly handsome or smart, but he was manipulative and opportunistic. Yet despite all this, Alicia defied her parents to be with him. I watched them fall in and out of love, constantly flirting, breaking up, reconciling, and breaking up again. I took advantage of her vulnerability back then. When Alicia was deeply hurt, I stayed by her side. I accompanied her as she drank, smoked, and battled insomnia. When she cried, I cried. When she laughed, I laughed. One night, after she got drunk, she unbuckled my belt. The next morning, she was dazed and said she wanted to marry me. I laughed until I cried, thinking my deep affection would be returned. Who knew that when our child was just 7 months old, these two went out on a date behind my back? I was nothing but a footnote in their grand love story. Itu Makoto's seat was arranged in front of mine. Alicia carefully helped him sit down. He thanked her, and she simply shook her head, saying it was nothing. My heart ached as I quickly looked down, tears welling up, threatening to fall. In my past life, I was full of arrogance and never considered Itu Makoto, an ordinary guy, a real threat. But now, in this life, I just wanted to escape. After school, Sophia approached me with a smile. "Alex, I brought your favorite oolong tea." It was amusing. Although Sophia was supposed to be my tutor in a way, I should have been the one treating her kindly. Yet, she was the one always bringing me tasty treats, claiming it was to balance work and relaxation for better study efficiency. I shook my head and chuckled. "Sophia, I just want to drink something." So we headed to the night market behind the school, grabbing some beer and skewers. Since I made the decision to focus on my studies, every time I met with Sophia, it was to study. But now it was rare for us to simply unwind. We didn't talk much during the meal. She ate the skewers with enthusiasm, while I enjoyed the beer with similar vigor. By the end, I was so drunk that I could barely stand. Without hesitation, Sophia reached out to steady me. "No need," I protested, but she refused to let go. "Don't be polite. I ate well so I'd have the energy to carry you back." Without another word, Sophia threw one of my arms over her shoulder and placed her arm around my waist. She tried to support me, her small, soft frame attempting to carry my weight. It was endearing, and at the same time, it made me ache. It was hard not to smile at how cute she was. "Alex, just try to be happy," she said, staying by my side, only speaking when I did. After a while, she quietly added, "I just want you to be happy." I let her hold me, my eyes welling up. I couldn't share the burdens of my past with anyone. No one could understand the pain I carried. Despite the bitterness I should have felt for certain people in this life, they had done nothing wrong yet, and I had no reason to harbor hatred toward them. Sophia continued supporting me the whole way, and with every step, I felt more miserable. When we were just a block from my house, I sighed, a little defeated, and said, "Sophia, I'll be willful just this once in this life. From now on, no one can make me cry." "Alex," Sophia's voice was gentle, "if you want to be willful, do it. I'll comfort you. After all, I'm a good student. I don't need to study that hard, so I have plenty of time." Her words warmed my heart, and I smiled quietly, comforted by her presence. The midterm exams loomed closer, and I threw myself into studying even more, determined to get back into Class A as soon as possible. During self-study, Itu Makoto tossed a crumpled paper ball at me, asking me to pass it to Alicia behind me. I had been reviewing the key points Sophia had marked for me, and the sudden interruption irritated me. I recalled how I had reacted in my past life, seething with hostility toward any boy who dared get close to Alicia. Opening the paper ball, I found a piece of chocolate and a crude doodle of a little ghost face. My temper flared, and I immediately asserted my claim over Alicia, telling him to stop wasting his time. But during the break, Itu Makoto grabbed Alicia's hand in a fit of anger, and the cold look she gave me could have killed me. Thinking about it, I glanced at the paper ball and coldly said, "Dude, it's self-study time. Just because you don't want to study doesn't mean everyone else doesn't." Itu Makoto's face turned bright red with anger. "It's just a note. Do you really need to make a big deal out of this? If you loved studying so much, why are you still in Class F?" The nerve of him. "I'm in Class F because I chose to be here, not because I belong here." I stood up, gathered my things, and slammed them onto Itu Makoto's desk. If you like passing notes so much, fine. Let's switch seats. Pass them all you want. Itu Makoto clenched his fists in rage. Why are you targeting me? I'm not trying to take Alicia from you. I just wanted to thank her. Based on his defensive tone, I guessed he'd heard about my overt pursuit of Alicia. Passing the note was probably just an attempt to humiliate me. But honestly, I was beyond caring. First, you can chase anyone you want and thank anyone you like. It has nothing to do with me. Second, I'm giving you an opportunity. You should be thanking me. Then I pulled him out of his seat and plopped myself down. Honestly, I was tired of being stuck between these two, and this gave me a perfect excuse to get away. In the end, I just hoped these two would end up together and stop messing with everyone else's lives. Alicia, who had been touching up her makeup, looked up at us switching seats. Alex, what's the meaning of this? Since she'd offered to find me a tutor and I'd turned her down, we hadn't spoken much lately. I turned to her and smiled faintly. Just helping you two out. No need to thank me. Alicia's expression soured. Itu Makoto seized the opportunity, grabbing the paper ball. Sorry for disturbing you. It's my fault. Alicia, I noticed you didn't have breakfast. Want some chocolate? Alicia, still angry, slapped the paper ball from his hand. I hate sweets. Itu Makoto clenched his fists, clearly frustrated. I ignored their petty drama and continued studying. Soon, the bell rang. I went to grab some water, but Itu Makoto beat me to it. With an innocent look, he said, Alex, I'm sorry for what I said earlier. Let me get you some water as an apology. Please forgive me. No need, I muttered. Not letting me get you the water means you won't forgive me. You hate me, he whined. My temples throbbed. Talking to him was exhausting. I just want to be friends, he continued, shaking the cup. Don't worry, I'll be quick. Ignoring my protests, he ran off. Martin raised an eyebrow. Is he okay? I shrugged, uninterested. About 5 minutes later, Itu Makoto returned with hot water. Alex, here you go. As I reached for it, he let go too early, intentionally tipping the cup toward me. The scalding hot water spilled, burning his hand. Itu Makoto screamed in pain. Alex, I just wanted to be friends. Why won't you forgive me? His scream grabbed everyone's attention. Can you believe it? A 16-year-old throwing childish, disgusting tantrums. I used to think there was something about him, despite his poor background and academic struggles, that had made Alicia fall for him so deeply. But now, seeing this, my patience wore thin. Alicia rushed over. What happened? Where did you get burned? Itu Makoto showed his red, blistered hand. I'm fine. Don't blame Alex. He didn't mean it. To my surprise, Alicia ignored him and came straight to me, checking my hand carefully. Compared to Itu Makoto's scalded hand, I only had a few red spots. Are you blind? Alicia yelled at Itu Makoto. Can't even hold a cup of hot water properly? Her words left both Itu Makoto and me stunned. She forcefully dragged me to the infirmary. The doctor said, if you had come any later, the burns would have been worse. Alicia cleared her throat, looking away. On the way back, we walked in silence. Just before we reached the classroom, she suddenly spoke. Alex, switch seats back. Why? A long pause followed. Just before we reached the door, she said, I take back what I said about hating you. After a brief hesitation, she added, the day after tomorrow is my birthday. The whole class will be there. Do you think you can come? I found out Alicia was pregnant on her birthday. It all started when she, someone who usually struggled with sleep, became unusually lethargic and developed a much larger appetite. I bought her a pregnancy test, but she dismissed it impatiently, claiming it was impossible, and continued partying, staying out late, putting on makeup, and wearing high heels without care. Concerned about her health, I drained the toilet tank and tested the urine she had left behind. 2 lines appeared, confirming my suspicions. When I saw the results, I felt an overwhelming rush of joy. I even went out and bought a small gift box with baby socks inside. I thought this was the perfect gift from the heavens for both of us, Alicia carrying our child, and me hoping to give her a stable home where we could live together forever. But much later, Itu Makoto told me that Alicia had actually come to break up with me that day. The pregnancy wasn't planned. and she didn't want it at all. She didn't know if the child was mine or Itu Makoto's. If it was his, she would have been happy, but if it was mine, she resented it. Unfortunately, the child was mine. The memory stabbed at me, and I rubbed my temples. I have something to do. I can't come. Behind me, her voice softened, tinged with a slight plea. It's at the manor we used to go to. I'll wait for you. There's something really important I need to tell you. I realized Alicia and Itu Makoto were alike in some ways. They both failed to understand what it meant to truly care for someone. I said nothing and walked straight into the classroom. Time moved quickly, and soon, 2 days later, arrived. Every classmate had prepared a gift for Alicia. Lisa had bought a crystal ball and Martin put a bag of crunchy noodles into an empty box. He sneered at me. Alicia used to make fun of you. Giving her a bag of crunchy noodles is already more than she deserves. I smirked, then turned to see Itu Makoto place a hairpin in a plain paper bag. No brand, poorly made, probably purchased at a roadside accessory shop. He didn't know that Alicia never wore cheap, unbranded items. I continued with my lessons, taking notes and doing my work until the school bell rang. Everyone rushed to the car Alicia's family had arranged. I avoided the crowd, found a quiet corner, and took out a paper airplane from my pocket. I set it on fire with a lighter. In this life, I chose to let go and stay away from toxic people. I was determined to live a good life, one that was mine. My future would be fine, and I wouldn't waste it. The only regret I had was the child who was rejected by his own mother and lost in a car accident. The paper airplane burned quickly in my hands. I thought, if I ever get a chance to love and marry again, please come back to me and be my child. I'll protect you with everything I have. I went home that night, curled up in bed with a book as the rain hammered down outside. At midnight, Alicia called. I turned off my phone. In the dead of night, my mother woke me up to tell me that Alicia was in the yard. I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 3 a.m, and the rain hadn't let up. I stepped outside. She stood in the rain, her hair plastered to her face, eyes clouded with emotion. Her first words cut through the cold air. Why didn't you come? I held an umbrella and stood several feet away, not wanting to share it with her. I never promised I would come. Alicia closed her eyes and sighed deeply. Fine, it doesn't matter. She went to the car and retrieved a cake, bringing it over to me. I waited for you to blow out the candles. I didn't move, watching the rain trickle down her hair, her lips turning blue from the cold. But I didn't feel pity. Our eyes met, and she saw the coldness in mine. Her smile faded, and she sighed heavily. Alex, can't you just give in, please? Please show some mercy and acknowledge me. Don't look at me like that. I looked down at the cake she was holding. In the past, I was always the one busiest on her birthday, choosing gifts, baking the cake, writing cards, decorating the place. I never expected anything in return, never even hoped to blow out the candles with her. I just wanted her to be happy. I didn't know why this Alicia suddenly started caring about me in this life. But her affection now meant less than nothing. I no longer cared. Alicia, don't you understand? I don't like you anymore. Not only do I not like you, but I don't even want to be friends. Her face froze. What? I switched seats with Itu Makoto to stay away from you. I'm working hard to get into Class A, just to be far from you. I used to like you, but that only caused you trouble. I realize that now, and I've changed. Alicia shook her head vigorously. No, it's not like that. Alex, I like you. From the moment you ignored me, I realized my mistake. I wanted to confess to you on my birthday. I even prepared flowers, fireworks, a 3,000-word love letter. Too late. Or maybe I had just become vengeful. One heartbreak was all it took for me to learn my lesson. Alicia, let's end it here. Don't come to me anymore. Our ties end right now. The rain hammered on the umbrella as I turned and walked back inside. I was so cold this time that I didn't even leave her the cheap umbrella. The midterm results came out quickly. I made it into the school's top 10 and was placed on the honor roll, finally returning to Class A. On the day I packed up, Martin hugged me and cried, "Brother G, I'm really going to miss you. Once you go to Class A, we won't see each other as much." I gently punched his shoulder. "I'll come back to visit you often. You should work hard, too. If you get into Class A, we can be desk mates again. Martin wailed. You might as well kill me now. Lisa gave me a notebook, hoping I would study hard and make progress, becoming the pride of Class F. Other friends who had spent time with me also said their goodbyes, giving me snacks and small trinkets. After the farewells, I was ready to leave with my backpack. Alicia, who had been silent up until then, came over to see me off. No need, I replied, turning her down. Her outstretched hand froze in midair. At that moment, Sophia walked in from outside, naturally linking her arm with mine. Under Alicia's jealous gaze, Sophia escorted me to Class A. At the door, she entered first, hung my backpack on the desk beside her, and patted the chair. Her eyes curved into a smile. Alex, welcome back. I smiled and sat down beside Sophia, extending my hand to her. Nice to meet you again, Sophia. I'm Alex from Class A. 2 years had passed in the blink of an eye. During this time, Alicia occasionally came to Class A looking for me. She brought meals, water, and an umbrella on rainy days, chasing after me just as fiercely and unconditionally as I had pursued her in the past, but I offered no response. The greatest kindness I could show in this life was to simply not harbor hate or seek revenge. Instead, I poured all my energy into bettering myself. My goal was clear: avoid any further entanglements with these people and not repeat the mistakes of my past life. After the college entrance exams, Class F organized a final gathering. That night, Alicia got drunk. With her eyes red from crying, she cautiously approached me, hesitating for what seemed like an eternity, before finally asking, Alex, I just want to know, back then, you liked me so much. Why did you suddenly stop liking me? I thought for a moment and replied softly, I had a dream. In that dream, you weren't very kind to me. I rambled on, speaking far too much, and oddly, recounting it now, I felt no emotional stir. It was as if the vivid and painful memories belonged to someone else entirely. She listened closely, her long lashes lowered, and her gaze became as calm as a placid lake in autumn. I thought she might brush it off as a bad joke, but instead, she met my eyes seriously. Alex, she said, her voice soft but sincere. The Alicia from our past life didn't love you, but the Alicia of this life does. I took a sip from my drink, feeling a slight buzz. But the Alex of this life isn't planning to wait. When the college entrance exam results were released, I applied to a university in the capital city, one I had always loved, studying a major I was passionate about. I made a vow to myself. No longer would I lower my worth or live without purpose for anyone or anything. On the day I went to report to my new school, Alicia came to see me off. In the crowded airport, her eyes were full of reluctance. She opened her arms and pouted, Alex, you might not see me for a long time. Can I have a hug before you go? Her results hadn't been as good as she hoped, so she'd chosen to retake the year. This goodbye would indeed mean we wouldn't cross paths for a long while. I took a step back, deliberately avoiding her embrace. Cutting ties decisively was my choice in this life. Her face dropped in disappointment. All right, Alex, wait for me for a year. I'll come find you. I shook my head. I won't wait. Don't waste your time. At that moment, the airport's public announcement system blared. I turned and walked away without hesitation, not even bothering with a polite farewell. Behind me, I heard Alicia's voice calling out, I won't listen to you, Alex. I'll come find you. I plugged in my earphones, shutting out the noise. On the plane, I found my seat and settled in. Then, a sweet lychee fragrance drifted over to me. I turned my head and saw a familiar, sweet face. Sophia smiled at me. Alex, for the next 4 years, it's your turn to take care of me. All right, I said, a smile forming on my lips.